I've already taken a 4-point hit, but does my team need even more surgery? Welcome to the Gianni YouTube show. Hope you guys are well and you're enjoying the international break. I've made a couple of early transfers and I still might not be done. This is my team selection video for game week 4. Guys, if you want to show support to the channel or support for me taking hits, because I've had so many fires to put out, hit that like button, but also please do subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. Without further ado, let's have a look at my bus team before I made my transfers. So we can see I've still got fires to put out. Yeah, it's far from optimal. Like, I have Johnson in my starting 11. I do think he'll start away at Brighton, or I'm hopeful. He started the last away game at City as a wing back when they played a back five. I've got Son in there still. Isak's not been delivering too many despite returns in game week 3. And Ollie Watkins, of course, we're a little unsure about him. Do I want the likes of Jota and Gordon moving forward as well? Well, we're not quite sure. But one guy I know I need to get in this team, and spoiler alert, one of my 2 transfers I've already made this week on a hit is for Mohamed Salah. So look, let's just take Son out this team because it's off-putting, right? It's not an accurate representation. I've got Mohamed Salah in my team, and this is why. Straight away, we can see, this was a tweet from FPL a couple of days ago, but look at the points he's got so far. He's matching Haaland, and these two are clearing away the best 2-point goal scorers in the first 3 game weeks. So we're looking at big points so far, 8 bonus points apiece, 41 points in total, lots of goals and assists. They're coming, and the fixtures are there for Salah. Now, the right decision pre-season was to have both these players in your team. Not many of us did it. Now, I've got to that. I'm happy. From game week 6, 7 or 8, maybe the move isn't to have both of them, but I think for certainly game week 4 and even game week 5, I think you should go with both of them. And therefore, Salah comes into my team. And when we look at some of his data from Fantasy Football Scout, we can see big chances so far this season. Haaland and Salah at 1 and 2. Shots on target, Haaland's 1, Salah's 3. Penalty area touches, Saka's 1, Salah's 2. Goals and assists, Haaland and Salah 1 and 2. XGI, Haaland and Salah 1 and 2. Like, for most of the attacking metrics that we care about, Haaland and Salah are at 1 and 2. Clearly, you should get them both in your team if you can. And when I look at the Liverpool pass maps from the first 3 games, what I'm seeing with Salah is consistency. And he's not too wide. At times, I worried he'd be too close to the touchline. But if we look at the game against Ipswich Town, he's high down that right-hand side. And he's fairly central. A lot of the play came down the left-hand side in that game. And Salah, we saw, still got big points. But when we look at game weeks 2 and 3, more came down that right-hand side. So this is from between the posts. We can see the passing lines, the size of the circle is the amount of activity. And look, Salah, certainly against Brentford in game week 2, the most advanced man on the pitch, receiving so many balls there from Szoboszlai, from Trent, who was also super high. And then game week 3, we remember that game well at Old Trafford. Well, Salah was also higher than Luis Diaz, higher than Szoboszlai, around the same as Diogo Jota, but a lot of play down that right-hand side from Trent. So far, so good. This should continue because the fixtures for Salah, Forest at home, Bournemouth at home, and in game week 5, when Haaland plays Arsenal, surely you want to be able to captain Mo Salah. Another reason to get him in your team. This video is sponsored by OneFootball, and I want to give a big shout out to OneFootball because it's an app I use on a daily basis. Honestly, first thing in the morning, the first thing I look at is football news. We all do. And OneFootball is my go-to for transfer gossip, especially this week with the window closing, for video clips of the goals, for fixtures, for alerts, all of that stuff. OneFootball, not just for Premier League football, but the big European leagues. I follow my Serie A news on there as well. Do check it out. There's a link in the description to download it. It's free and it's brilliant. So guys, let's move on then, shall we, and talk about what my transfer options were, I guess. Like, I did an early thoughts video at the start of the international break, and I presented these 4 options, right? I looked at it and thought, I'm not happy with a fair few of these players. I could sell Gordon to a Diaz or an Eze, straight swap. I could sell Son to the same guys, Diaz or Eze. Or I could start thinking about 4-point hits. And option 3 was Son and Isak out to Salah and Joao Pedro. And option 4 was just to address the defence. And that was, say, a Konza in for a haul. I've gone and done it. I've gone and done option 3. Knowing if there's any other fires to put out, I can still hit that wildcard button. And remember, if I wildcard now, the 4-point hit goes. So I was happy taking a 4-point hit, knowing players were going up in price. I had to get on Salah and Joao Pedro. Now, in a straight swap, Salah's clearly better than Son. But let's go back to the 11 and take Isak out. Is Joao Pedro a better option than Isak? No. Is Joao Pedro a better option than Isak in game weeks 4 and 5? I think he might be. I think he just might be. Because when we just purely a fixtures play, Ipswich and Forest at home is clearly a way better fixture run than Wolves and Fulham away. We know Newcastle can sometimes struggle on the road. So we've got to take that into consideration. And then we take into consideration the fact that Joao Pedro's been flying, really, and so have Brighton. And Newcastle have looked a little bit limited in front of goal. Yes, they've won games and Isak got his big points in game week 3. But have they really been passing the eye test? Have their numbers looked great? No. Brighton's have looked better. Joao Pedro's looked better. And I'm willing to punt him in. And I just hope that he starts game week 4. It's a risky pick because Joao Pedro wasn't, and I tweeted this, wasn't originally called up for the Brazil squad. A Brazilian striker called Pedro did his ACL, and Joao Pedro got a late call up. Now, game 1 for Brazil, which was, I think, Saturday night or Friday night, he didn't get any minutes off the bench. And you don't expect Joao Pedro to get too many minutes. The problem isn't the minutes, it's the travelling. They do play late on Tuesday night, and that could, some might say, affect his minutes. I don't think it's going to be too much of a concern. We've seen in the past players fly back from South America and still make the early kickoff. I think of like the Brazilians at Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp complaining 12:30 on a Saturday, the early kickoff, but he still manages to start. Well, Joao Pedro's got a few more hours because he's playing at 3 o'clock on Saturday, but I would like to think he'll be back in time. Watch this space. Let's listen out for Hersler in the press conference and what he says. But again, if I have more fires like a Joao Pedro, or an Ollie Watkins injury or whatever, then hitting the wildcard button is a legit option. And we're going to run through some positives and negatives of a wildcard in just a second. So when we look at my team, we've got Salah in midfield alongside Jota, Rodgers, who's surely due, and Anthony Gordon. Then up front, we've got Joao Pedro with Haaland and Watkins. Now, I'm really hoping Watkins is fit and good, because if he is, big points are surely due Everton and Wolves at home. The back, of course, we've got Henderson in goal, Trent, Robertson, and then Johnson, who we spoke a little bit about earlier. So the big decision for many this week will be, do I or don't I hit that wildcard button? Now, there's loads of positives and negatives. The main positives are you put out the fires, you get Haaland and Salah, you get your right 3 Liverpool players. Like on wildcard, I'm probably not going Jota, because I think we'll see rotation in a few weeks for Jota. I'll probably go Robertson, Trent and Salah. You can jump on Villa, Brighton, Palace players who've got good fixture runs. You can react to any international break news. The negatives of a wildcard in 4 are, how do you get Arsenal and Brentford players in? Because they've got bad 4 and 5 fixtures, but brilliant from 6. And you'd be keeping up with the 6 wildcarders by getting them in. So what do you do with Arsenal and Brentford on a 4 wildcard? It's still a very small data size, sample size so far. Haaland and Salah is great now, but you might not want both moving forward. You can't react to European rotation. Like, we don't know how managers are going to work. Like Arne Slot at Liverpool, we have no idea what he's going to do with the attackers for the Champions League. Maybe we'll know more in a few weeks in terms of our FPL picks. There's been little information about some of the new arrivals, like are Sterling and Sancho going to be in the 11s at Arsenal and Chelsea? If so, maybe they're really good picks. If we wildcard later, we can pick them. And maybe there's not the best fixture swings in 4. There's better swings in 6, where you can jump on Arsenal and Brentford, sexier FPL teams. So worth considering. I have done a wildcard video, and if I do wildcard, you can check out my wildcard video and see what team I'm going to go with. But as things stand, with the information we have, the 11 that we see on screen, with Son out and Salah in, with Isak out and Joao Pedro in, this is a team that I'm relatively happy with. So far, so good. That's where I think I'm at come game week 4. I know it's not optimal at the back. Lewis Hall, Johnson, I need to move them on. I'm not willing to take an 8. As soon as you get into 8-point hit territory, you definitely hit the wildcard button, which is why I mentioned if I had another fire to put out, well, sure, I'm definitely going to hit the button. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I hope you're hitting that like button, and I hope you've seen enough to subscribe to the channel. If you have, then drop a comment and let me know what you think to my team and that big wildcard dilemma. It does feel like around 25% of managers are looking at an international break wildcard. I did a Twitter poll, it got a good response. Around 25% does feel high. I think we'll see similar numbers though in game week 6. And that game week 6 wildcard in an ideal world, I think, is where I'm more comfortable. But sometimes needs must, and wildcard is such a personal thing to your team. There's no right and wrong answer here. We can present information, and then you can decide whether or not you think it's right for you. So we've gone through the pros, we've gone through the cons. When I look at my team now, I do quite like the fact that I've got a few players that I think I wouldn't have on a 4 wildcard, but I do think could go big in game week 4 and 5. So I really like Jota. Wouldn't have him on my wildcard, I don't think, but I really want him in 4 and 5. Ollie Watkins, I really want in 4, 5, 6. Again, I don't know if I put him in a wildcard team. I think Gordon can still produce points against Wolves and Fulham. He wouldn't be in my wildcard team, not in a month of Sundays, but he's absolutely a good, firm favourite in my current team. So I'm hoping my hand isn't forced. At the same time, I look at a wildcard team and go, how many of these players actually make it in? Because at the moment, from the wildcard draft video I made, only 5 of these players are in that draft. I'll tell you, it's Trent. Trent's in. Salah's in. Rodgers is in as a squad man. Joao Pedro and Haaland. Every other player in my team doesn't make my wildcard team, which does beg the question, Gianni, should you just swallow it, suck it up, and hit the button? We'll see. Guys, thank you for watching. On your way out, like and subscribe, and go check out that wildcard draft. See you later. Bye-bye.